Are you anything like me when you're going out with your camera for the day? You're not sure what kit you might use, so you end up squeezing everything you possibly can into your bag just in case you might need it for one shot. Then when you've been out for an hour or two, your shoulders are killing you from the weight of all the gear you've got, and you find yourself not even taking most of it out of your bag, and you could have just left it at home. That's me every single time. I never learn. I'm trying to get better at being a bit more selective over the gear that I take out with me, but there is one lens that I have with me in my camera bag at all times, no matter how much gear I have with me, and that is this, the 50mm prime. But why? 50mm, I think, is one of the most versatile focal lengths around. You tend to find that it's great for most things, whether that's portraiture, landscapes, you can get some great wildlife photos with it, street photography, and it's great for video too, whether you're shooting B-roll or just setting up for a nice talking headshot. It's not as if it's a really wide or tight focal length either, it's a really nice middle ground, but even with that being the case, you still get some really nice compression within your images, which is something that starts to happen the further down the focal range you get. They usually have quite wide apertures as well, which is great if you want to get that shallow depth of field. The 50mm prime that I use is the Lumix S f1.8, which is great, but you can also get primes that have apertures of f1.4, 1.2 and even 1. 50mm is also known as the focal range closest to what the human eye sees. Now there's a photographer that I follow who also has a YouTube channel called James Popsis, and he says that his favorite focal length is 40 to 50mm because of this exact reason, because it's closest to what the human eye sees, and he will shoot most of his photos within that 10mm focal range. And that is something that's started to rub off on me as well quite a lot recently. I've started shooting myself at around that 40, 50mm focal range because I like the way it looks, and James Popsis is one of the photographers that inspires me the most at the moment. For the image quality that you get from prime lenses, the 50mm is often one of the most affordable ones. This Lumix 50mm 1.8 that I use, you can pick up for about 430 quid brand new, which for a prime lens is really good value. You could probably pick one up even cheaper second hand, but if you shoot Canon and Sony, Nikon, you will find 50mm to be around that most affordable range. If you take everything into account, it provides great value for money for that reason. You can't really go wrong with it. Whether you're a beginner or a professional and you're looking for a bit of a workhorse lens that won't break the bank if you do happen to break it in the worst case scenario, the 50mm is perfect. Using prime lenses makes you think more when you are out shooting about things like composition, which can actually go even further into helping improve your creativity. There's no zooming in or out with a prime lens because it is stuck at 50mm or whatever focal length your prime you're using. With a zoom lens, you could stand in the same place and zoom in or out to compose your shot. With a prime lens, you've actually got to physically move your feet and move around. You become more engaged in the process of your photography or video because it's forcing you to be more thoughtful about things like your composition and your framing. And because you are being forced to think about things in a different way to what you might be used to, you can come out with some even more engaging and well-composed shots that you might have with just a zoom lens. And that makes it even more rewarding for you, the photographer, videographer, whatever you want to call yourself. One of the most noticeable features of prime lenses is the bokeh that they create from having a wider aperture. Do you say bokeh or bokeh? Bokeh? Bokeh sounds weird. I'm going to continue to say bokeh because I'm from the north of England. Bokeh. The wider the aperture that you are shooting at, typically the more bokeh you will have in the background, and it helps to separate the subject from the background a little bit more because you are creating an even shallower depth of field. Shallow depth of field and bokeh is also associated with creating a more cinematic or a more professional looking image as well, as it's helping to isolate the subject and gives a slightly three-dimensional feel to the image as well. Add to the bokeh the compression compression that you get at 50mm as well, and you can come out with some stunning images. That being said though, as nice as it is to have lenses that shoot at f1.8, 1.4, 1.2, don't fall into the trap of shooting everything wide open. As easy as it is to do and as good as it looks, don't do it all of the time. Don't fall into that trap. Just don't do it. One of the main reasons to have a prime lens in your camera bag is purely and simply because of the image quality that you get from them, and it is far superior over what you get from zoom lenses. Prime lenses are known for things like sharpness and clarity, lack of distortion, lack of things like chromatic aberration and fringing, and while you do still get those occasionally on prime lenses, you see far less of it on them than you do with zoom lenses. And that's purely and simply because with zoom lenses, there's far more moving parts to them inside of the actual lens. And while there are loads of zoom lenses out there well worth having in your kit bag, they are far more complex than prime lenses, which are relatively nice and simple when you compare them. So there's a few reasons to have a 50mm prime lens in your camera bag at all times. The 50mm tends to be one of the first primes that you buy when you're getting into photography, purely because of a couple of these reasons, with it being so affordable and just being so versatile a focal range. It is great. I love it. I will continue to use it a hell of a lot. It is perfect for so many situations, whether being used for photography or video. It is great, and I would highly recommend having one in your bag. So let me know if the 50mm has pride of place in your bag, or maybe you prefer another focal length that you won't go anywhere without. Let me know in the comments below, and I shall see you in the next video. I shouldn't have a bag of these on my desk next to me. I can't stop eating them. Vimto. So good. They're very chewy. Incredibly chewy.